Life Management Science Labs would like to acknowledge that we live and produce this podcast on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. We'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands of our listeners and our international colleagues. We'd like to thank and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Hi everyone, and welcome to On the House, the Household Management Science Insights podcast produced by LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. We are champions of life management science, providing structured insights informed by science and inspired by practice on key aspects of conscious living. Each week we bring you scientific and practical insights on each element with the expert knowledge of professionals in the field. I'm your host, Gabriella Yastra, coming to you from Naarm, Melbourne, Australia. Let's begin.
Welcome back to the show. These days, there's a smart version of pretty much every home device you can think of. Light bulbs, doorbells, locks, vacuum cleaners. There's even a smart stove knob that appeared on the infamous business reality television series Shark Tank. But today, we're taking a look at a smart device that turns food scraps into fertilizer in just a click of a button and a few short hours, the smart composter. We'll be examining the benefits of using a smart composter as opposed to traditional methods of composting, discussing its relevance in the world of sustainability and what to look out for if you're on the market for one. And guiding us through this is Associate Professor Muhammad Ali, who currently teaches waste management and environmental engineering among a slew of subjects at the University of Portsmouth in the UK. So welcome to the show, Ali. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Marie.
Yeah, thanks for spending your time with us. So tell us a bit about your background and what sparked your interest in this field of study.
Oh, that's an interesting question. So my background is in civil engineering. So I did my first degree in civil engineering. And at the end of a degree, as normally lots of students would choose a research project, I chose a waste management related project, and that actually sparked my interest in the area. And also, I realized the fact that as the population continues to grow in the world, and we continue to produce waste, there's always going to be this problem, and so we need someone skilled people to actually address these problems. And so that led me on to do my master's in environmental engineering. And again, there was a subject on solid waste management, in particularly in that particular my master's degree. Then I was fortunate enough to get a PhD bursary to do my PhD actually in composting at Cardiff University in South Wales, in the UK. And so this was quite a while ago. This was probably, I graduated in 2008. So starting my PhD in 2003. So it's been nearly 20 years if we look at from the perspective that I've been involved in particularly the composting area of the research. And the reason I did this is because I always realized the fact that waste is going to be a problem and is not going to go away. And so we clearly need to do more research and have develop better understanding around solving this particular problem, which isn't going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's amazing that you've dedicated your life to this this field. So, it's great to have your expertise with us today. And with regards to our topic for today, what do you find to be a common misconception about composting?
Oh, there are quite a few misconceptions. The key misconception is that that people think that it's very difficult to do, and they find that it's going to be a cumbersome job. Actually, it's a very straightforward job, but of course you need to be aware of what you are doing, and so just a few simple techniques can get you going. The other misconception is that people think that if they live in an apartment or in a building where they don't have access to a garden, they can't do composting. That's definitely a misconception. You can do it in a small confined space if you got all you need is a tiny bit of area where you can have a small composter or a wormery. We can discuss that, so that's definitely a misconception that people can actually undertake this. Given a small space within their house, even on a balcony, for example, you can do that.
Amazing. Now, that's a great introduction for our topic for today. But before we get further into detail, I would love to get to know you better. So, this is Have You Met Ali? And my first question for you is, what do you like to do in your spare time?
Okay, so like to do a couple of things. So reading is something definitely I like. So spend time a bit of reading different things. And particularly, I'm more interested in research, reading about research around my area, and so sort of get to know what's really going around, so I can develop my knowledge around it. Apart from that, of course, the usual things, like watching Netflix, for example, watching some TV shows. I'm more into sort of thrillers and this kind of thing, and then generally spend time with my family. I've got young family, so spend time with my kids. I've got twins, a boy and a girl, so I spend a lot of time with them. It's a bit hard job, but yeah, so it's just the usual things, as majority of people would do. Nothing special as such.
Oh, that's awfully modest. I don't believe that any parent's life is boring, to say the least. So,
Definitely.
yeah. So, what kind of books do you enjoy reading?
So as I said, there's one particular book I really enjoy, and that's fun enough is quite related to this. It's called "Worms Eat My Garbage." It's written by an American biologist. Her name is Mary Applehoff, and so essentially created a book about wormy composting, which is actually some of my PhD was on that. So that was the first book I acquired, and that, of course, it gave me a lot of insight into this particular process. And it's quite an old book now, but I still have it. And sometimes when my student comes and they're interested in learning about this, I lend them a book as well, for them to read. But mainly, I would say I'm more interested in research and scientific related books, more so
Yeah,
than anything.
yeah, that's definitely a hallmark of a professor, I'd say. So, what kind of activities do you enjoy spending? Not spending. Sorry. What kind of activities do you enjoy doing with your kids?
So definitely we like traveling. We if we get any opportunity to go travel, we definitely go. And food, definitely, that's something that we definitely enjoy, going out to have meals and going out for walks. Where I live, it's by the coast, and during the summer in particularly, we have very nice weather because it's right to the south of the UK. And so the weather tends to be better compared to the other part of the UK. So just spending time with the family, just
Yeah.
that's what I enjoy.
Yeah, that sounds awfully pleasant. I mean, food is such a great topic because it's so diverse and it's what most people have in common. We all have to eat food every day. And don't get me wrong, there's some people who are those eat to live kind of people, not live to eat kind of people, which is different. But surely at some point they find some joy in eating something. So yeah, food's always a great unifier, I think. So either in your professional life or your personal life, is there someone that you have looked up to?
Definitely. So of course my father, he was again, it's a cliche, but he was a professor. But he's a professor, but he's retired now. So that's definitely has been my inspiration. So I would say probably the research and the being an educationist is in my blood. But then I also look up to my PhD supervisor, who definitely guided me and supported me, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be what I am. So definitely a lot of credit goes to my PhD supervisor. Again, he's retired now, but he's enjoying his retired life, I would say. So yeah, so those are the two key people I would say has massive impact on my life.
Yeah, it's great that you had those two people to look up to. And what would you say are the most admirable traits that you found in them?
So I mean, going back to my dad, of course, he worked really hard, and he dedicated his whole life towards teaching and imparting knowledge. He's a mechanical engineer, so it's slightly different to what I did. But he was at a department. See, but it's essentially just dedicated his whole career in imparting knowledge and in education. So that's definitely something. And for my supervisor, that I saw his dedication towards work again. I always saw him, finding solutions to problems. He's also an engineer, so he had that passion as well. So I absorbed a lot of that from him to have that little passion on what he's doing, and do the best at what he can offer, and that kind of thing. Ethos of work, I would say, that kind of thing I definitely learned from both of my father and my PhD supervisor.
Yeah, it sounds like like you had wonderful role models to look up to. So that's
Definitely,
great.
definitely. I've been definitely lucky in terms of that. I do feel that I am lucky that I've had these people in my life.
Yeah. So my last question for you, I am going to pivot a little bit and circle back to food, which we were talking about before. A little bit of a lighthearted question to end things off. What is your most controversial opinion on anything about food?
Okay, this is quite interesting question. At the moment, the problem that we have is, especially in developed countries, that we tend to take food for granted. We throw a lot of food, and for example, I can just give you some numbers from statistics, and these numbers, of course, keep on rising. For example, in the UK, we waste around 10 million tons of food waste. We produce a lot of food waste, and that just goes predominantly. Well, it's different. We can just talk about where they end up, but it has been ended up in a landfill essentially, and which is you know the the, the worst thing ever, because the food can go in the organic food, and particularly the kitchen waste. It shouldn't definitely go to landfill. We know that. So that's one of the key issues that we have in terms of these numbers goes up. So that's one of the major problems that we have is we take food for granted, and we waste a lot, and that's something I really don't like. Putting scraps or food that could potentially be used or be passed on. I mean, for example, majority of the supermarkets in the UK, there's dates on it, best before, for example, of something, and then by regulation they have to get rid of it, and it's perfectly fine, to be utilized, and sometimes it's not even passed on to, for people who may need it. It ends up in a bin essentially, and that's really heartbreaking at times, because a lot of energy goes into production, from agricultural to transportation to get to this supermarket, and then at the end it goes in a bin. So no one is actually benefiting from it, and the worst part is that it has an impact on the environment, which is a major problem.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a major issue for me, and that really upsets me. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah, and this ties really nicely into our topic for today as well. So, what does composting at home do for the environment?
So, for example, the main thing that it's good for the garden. So, for example, you've got your green waste and all that. So that definitely you can utilize that into converting into organic fertilizer, but also your kitchen waste. So I'm gonna I could explain a bit more on what kitchen waste is, but essentially the stuff that could potentially be composted can go in a composting system. So for a home, essentially it's the garden waste and it's the kitchen waste that could be combined to produce a nutrient-rich fertilizer. You can call it fertilizer, that it can be reused on your own in your own garden. And then you can create a system where you are actually growing your own fruit, veg, whatever you think of, from your own waste, essentially. So it creates that little circularity at your own home.
Yeah. And how does composting work?
So there's several different definitions or processes around it. To a simple person, it's essentially a breaking down of organic matter in an oxygen uh, rich or oxygen presence of oxygen, which is what we call aerobic process. And so the bugs, the microorganisms that essentially play a key role in this, and they help break down the organic matter, whether it's your garden waste or whether it's your kitchen waste. And then the resultant product essentially is a earthy, textured or earth smelly kind of
Mhm.
material at the end that can be used to spread on your in your garden or in your flowering pots or whatever you think of. So essentially it's just like it looks like soil, and that's what basically compost is.
Mhm. And for those who don't have gardens or flowering pots at home or anything like that, what can they use the compost for?
So it's a very interesting question. And so, I mean, I can give you an example of what happens in the UK. So if people don't have access to a garden, or they may have a garden, or which is maybe covered with slabs or concrete, for example, or they don't have actual access to the soil.
Mhm.
Uh, there are different places where what we call allotments in the UK. So you can
Mhm.
actually have a place somewhere a little bit away from your home where you can actually go and do a bit of this yourself. So
Mhm.
you can get it from your local authority. You pay a little, just a nominal fee for accessing that patch of land where you can actually do this yourself, where you can
Mhm.
actually use your compost to grow your own things. So
Right.
this probably is an option available. um, I'm not sure about other things, but I'm assuming you can join lots of gardening clubs.
Mhm.
It's all about passion. If you really want to do it, then you will definitely find a way to get involved uh,
Yeah.
in this.
Yeah. What I can think of is probably, well, the most convenient route for me would probably be to just donate it to a friend who does have a garden or plants at home or something like that, just because going to the community garden, it's quite far away. Anyway, that's um my own personal track for that. But some people may live near community gardens, but the rules have to be checked to see if you can actually donate the compost or something like that. And definitely don't just spread the fertilizer around random plots of land, I assume.
Yeah, definitely. It can you can get into trouble in terms of especially if it's not properly treated or not in a stage where it still is in a waste form. So that
Mhm.
could cause problem, especially because some of these things attracts rats and rodents and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So things would, yeah, so you can end up in a different situation
Yeah.
essentially if it's not done properly.
Yeah. You did mention that doing this outside or improperly could attract rodents or rats or whatnot. Does this tend to happen in the home?
Yeah, it definitely can happen within the home setting, and that's why it's important to have knowledge, some at least some basic understanding of how to perform the composting even at home.
Mhm.
Um, Definitely it's an issue with the rodents and rats, but also smell, that could be another problem. And also your system can go what we call anaerobic. So that's where you've got a lot of liquid forming in your system, and that can again lead to anoxic and anaerobic conditions, which is again can create foul smell,
Mhm.
flies, that kind of
Yeah.
things. You may get into that situation if you don't
Mhm.
do it correctly. You can fix things. I'm not saying it's just the end of the
Mhm.
world, but the key thing would be to keep an eye on it. So if you keep an eye on it, it should be fine.
Yeah. And what are some workarounds for those issues that may come about with composting?
Okay, so is there a little bit science into this, to be honest? So, for example, the key thing we know that in order to get a good composting system, or to maintain a good composting system, there's something what we call carbon nitrogen ratios. So you have to maintain that carbon nitrogen ratios correct, and there's of course an ideal range for it. Um, you may not be able to sort of achieve those numbers or record those numbers at home. Of course, we could do it in a lab, but there is certain levels. So, for example, you need to make sure that you're adding right kind of carbonaceous materials and right kind of nitrogen rich materials, and there's a little balance to it. So if you keep that balance going on, then things should work okay. Similarly with the moisture, you have to make sure that it's adequately moistened. You don't overwater it, you don't underwater it, and that kind of thing. You make sure that things like aeration is there. You mix it so that the air gets into it, because it's an aerobic process. So the microorganisms that operate in the system, they're oxygen loving bugs. So you need to make sure that you mix it properly. If you mix it, then of course that helps a lot. System going on, and temperature as well. So these are key parameters that we need to try and maintain to certain within a range, so that system doesn't go bad, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That actually sounds like a lot. It sounds like gardening, but next level. It's a different kind of gardening. I can't explain it. I don't garden, as you can tell. But with smart composting products, what benefits do those products bring?
Okay, so again, this is a buzzword, isn't it? We all know that. So that smart, I would think of a smart in two different ways. So smart from a technological perspective, and smart being aware of how you actually process or how you handle the system. Now, the in terms of the technology or the stuff that you're looking in the market nowadays, if you sort of search for them, there's certainly products that are coming in the market that you can buy. You can easily access them, but you can purchase them. They are smart in a sense that they do certain things that are more advanced than the current or the traditional systems. But I don't think that we have reached that stage where things like the AI is totally integrated within the system. We may get there, but we aren't there yet. But that's definitely a possibility to get into those particular areas where you can combine those couple of things together. And those are the things where these things that I was talking about, the temperature, moisture content, things like pH maybe, or the weight in particular, and the carbon, nitrogen, all those things could potentially be used to feed into maybe an AI algorithm to work things out to make sure that the system is maintained in a top-notch condition, so that it can perform in the right way, and then that might rule out all the things that a normal person who doesn't need to know about these things, and the AI can handle. So all that heavy lifting can be done by AI. So that's definitely there, but we aren't there yet. But I've seen certain products that could do this, but I don't think at the moment there's more research definitely needs to be done in this to be able to say that yes, that's definitely something people can jump on and get one, essentially.
Yeah. So from what you've seen from the average smart composting product, what can they do at the moment that our traditional methods of composting can't?
Okay. So first thing, the most important thing is in particularly for the home setting, is what we call the throughput. So throughput means in terms of processing. So the capacity of how they can shift the material from from a waste to a end product, that isn't there. So you can only process small quantities, and that is a major issue, because in a traditional systems, there are variety of number of options available depending upon your affordability, depending upon the space and the size you have, and depending upon the type of technique you want to use. But majority of them definitely can process quite a lot in terms of the mass of the material, compared to when compared this to the smart systems. So the smart systems tend to be quite small, but you have to understand that smart systems at the moment, in the ones that are currently in the market, are essentially designed as a countertop systems. So they are small, like a small caddy kind of thing, maybe 10-15 liters. There's the maximum capacity, maybe 20 liters capacity. So that definitely is quite smaller compared to a traditional system, which is 200 plus liter capacity. So you can see there's 10 times difference in terms of the capacity from a traditional system to a smart system. The other thing is that with the smart system is that although it produces a product, but that might not be a what we call a compost. You may call it a pre-composted product or a something that still needs to go through a process of composting. So it's in a way it's in initial stages of composting, but not certainly 100%. That can get you a product that you can just use, take it and spread it on your garden or put it in your flower pots and grow things in it.
Yeah, it sounds an awful lot like a lot of these smart composting products are catered to an audience who isn't very knowledgeable about composting, and that's coming from somebody who isn't actually knowledgeable on composting that much at all. But it seems like it's meant for convenience, and that like you can just dump your waste in there and poof, it comes out compost and you don't have to think about it. And I've also seen some criticism online about some products being marketed as kitchen composters, like you mentioned, but what come out of them isn't actually compost. So what should we be looking out for to ensure that we're purchasing a smart composter that actually produces compost? Or is this dependent on like what we put in?
Definitely. So there's a variety of things there. So the key thing is that at the moment we are still at an early stage. You have to understand that we are still at an early stage of jumping on this bandwagon of smart composting. So definitely that's something to be wary of. The other thing is there is a possibility of adding certain kind of materials to it. So for example, if you got some dried leaves or something that you may be able to put in these smart systems, and you can get them turned into a pre-composted product. Maybe so this is where we call it sort of initial scoping of trying to sort of see if certain kind of materials work. But certainly one thing that is definitely an issue is that the product that comes out of these smart composting systems isn't 100% composted. So it needs to go through a secondary, maybe a tertiary treatment in order for it to be actually called as a composted product.
Yeah. And is this the case for most of the smart composting products?
So, as I said, the majority of the smart composting system that I have seen so far, they are the countertop ones. They are quite small. And also one thing is that they are electric powered. So you have to use energy to sort of get them going. They don't work just on their own. So you have to use power, electricity, essentially to run these. So that definitely is it could be an issue, especially if you're thinking from a sustainability perspective, that we're trying to produce something and then we're also using power to run this, while the other systems that we have at home, they do not require anything. It's just the natural process that we use. But there is something that in between that is possible, which is what I'm currently researching on to see if we can come up with a system which is smart enough, but not to the level of having those issues around size, throughput, and using significant amount of power to actually produce something that is still not the thing that we are after.
Yeah, it's almost like it's one step forward and two steps back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I am, don't get me wrong, I'm really interested in, and I want to see this flourishing because I've seen this, and I can see where the added benefits of, especially with the AI, use of AI definitely can do a lot better in terms of, monitoring the process, and maintaining the process, monitoring the process, as I said, but they may not be suitable at the moment for the countertop version or a home composting system. They may be suitable for a industrial level, I would say. But again, once we have sort of learn and master a bit about at the industrial level, then we can start shrinking it down to a level that we can use it at home. That definitely will be a future. So, as with technology, start with big things and you get smaller and smaller and smaller. So I think that will happen. It's just a matter of getting this right. And again, that will come from research. So we need to spend a lot more time on understanding these systems, and then going towards this into a stage where it can be used widely by the public.
Yeah, and I'm not knocking our current smart composting products out there as well, because they pave the way. Something needs to come out first, and then there can be research to be that can be done, and people will know what gaps needs to be filled, and what issues need to be solved, etc. So all in all, what do you see in the future of smart composting technology? How do you see it evolving to potentially meet the needs of more environmentally conscious homeowners?
So definitely, as I said, there's some way to get to these in your home. It is happening. I mean, the products are there, but whether they are currently fit for purpose, that I'm not too sure about. I've not really handled these myself, so I can't be 100% sure on this. But what I do see, them going on to the sort of a mid-level or to a industrial level. By mid-level, I mean that it could be systems where they are placed at maybe a community center or maybe somewhere in town, where you can take your food waste and you can deposit it there in those systems, and the systems can process this in terms of the volume and in terms of the ability, because those systems needs to have all those sensors and things like that to talk to the AI to be able to do the job. And then definitely at the industrial level, definitely I can see this happening at industrial level much more efficiently compared to smaller versions at home. It will happen, as I said, but I can't see it happening very quickly. We may be. So the idea is great, but whether it's fit for purpose at the moment, I'm not too sure. It may happen, but only time can tell. But again, as I said, there is that little thing connection between prototypes or to actual things that actually deliver or can do the job that is intended to.
Yeah, if that product it comes out and is successful, at least like in terms of its working capacity, that would be wonderful, because the amount of times that I have had food waste that I go like, oh, this could easily go into the compost potentially, but I don't have a composting bin. I have a lot of concerns about it. It's just because I have a cat, and like having the food waste around is just not great, because it attracts flies, it attracts him into like potentially knocking it down. I have a very boisterous cat, so let's not talk about that. I don't want to talk about it right now. He just traumatized me this morning. But yeah, it's just a lot going on, and yeah, it just would be great for households like mine. Maybe I'm being too self-centered, but I imagine that there are households out there that also do look at this food waste and go, this could go into the composting bin. I don't have one, feeling guilty about having to just throw it away. Yeah, so that would be wonderful to have. I imagine it would be a huge help. But there also needs to be a demand for it.
Definitely. So in terms of these smart systems, I mean, the ones that I've seen in the market, I mean, when you said about tipping it over and stuff going out, they do have sort of a firm lid on it, so you can actually lock it. So things don't sort of tend to sort of just fall apart from it. But for the people, I think, who wants to start actually thinking about composting, may not be a direct jump on a smart system. Maybe try something in between as a starter system. We can talk about other systems where which could be potentially more efficient than a smart system. And then once you become a little bit more familiar, then you can go on to the next stage, or maybe invest in, because these are not cheap. These things do cost money, and so. So maybe that's the route that somebody can follow. Definitely, that's what I would suggest to do. Start with something basic, and then maybe go on to the next stage of using something like vermicomposting. We can talk about that, and then the next stage is actually to go on down the smart route.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are some basic alternatives that beginners could delve into a little bit?
So, in terms of home composting, there are several different options. I can list maybe 6.
Wow.
There's a system called a cold system. So, cold system means that you got a bin, and then again within the cold system there are subcategories. So there's things like a Dalek style. Then there is just a wooden pallet style. Like a plastic, bins. You have you can put your stuff in it, and it can be on directly on the soil, or it could be on the slab. Depends on that. So that's what we call a cold system, and I can explain that. Then you have a hot system, which is essentially again like a square box or a rectangular box kind of system, where it's made with mostly like a insulated material, something like polystyrene, where temperature can be maintained a bit better than a cold system. So that's a hot system. Then you have a tumbler system. So you have a thing that is like a little drum, like a washing machine kind of drum, but it's mostly plastic kind of thing. And then you put your stuff in it and you turn it now and then to get things going, mixing. Then there is, of course, vermicomposting, as I said. So that's using earthworms to compost. It's a great system, by the way. And then you have a bokashi system, which is where you have it's a hybrid between it's an anaerobic system, so that's a slightly different system. It may not be called as a composting, but that's a system that you can use as well. So that's another one that definitely people, and of course the new these advanced smart systems. So quite a few to choose from. Essentially, it depends upon your choice.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I never knew that there were so many more beginner friendly options out there. So that's definitely something that I will have to consider, because like I hear the word composting a lot. I just hear compost, 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 and I just see people have these huge bins and where they throw their food into. So I always just thought there was just this one method of composting. So that's good information to know, and I feel a little bit more at ease knowing that there are more efficient options out there. So thank you very much for sharing that. Now let's talk about the more practical sides of things. What is a habit that you would recommend practicing to support our sustainability practices at home, and especially with composting?
So definitely, if you've got a garden, so definitely try and especially during the autumn times, and even in spring when you are doing your pruning, you definitely need to use that to compost. Definitely. And of course, with every home there's kitchen waste, and particularly the vegetables, fresh fruit peelings and vegetables. That's definitely can be composted and should be composted. It's I would say it's probably a cardinal sin to put all of these useful products into a refuse bag, what we call a garbage bag, or so that it can be either landfill or could be burned. Majority of these food waste, in particularly where I live, it's essentially being burned in an energy from waste plant, and then again that's something we know that it could be diverted towards producing an organic fertilizer. Or a nutrient-rich soil amendment material. So in terms of what they can do is essentially, so if you got the access to a garden, and of course you will have food waste at home, then you can use certain things, to combine them together in certain fashion, so you can actually create a nice working home composting system without much of an effort, essentially. And these basic systems are quite cheap to buy and to operate, and they last for a long time. And so they are pretty good, and to be honest, they are not very demanding in terms of what you need to do to it. As far as you constantly feed it and you look after it, now and then it does the job. It's Mother Nature that takes the control over the system, and if you keep the bugs happy, they'll do the job for you.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing all of your expertise with us. It's been such a pleasure to pick your brain and learn a bit more about composting, which is rather elusive to some people. Although there's the internet now, so we are well equipped to learn a bit more ourselves, which is great. But it's always good to talk to someone who has dedicated themselves to this study. So yeah, thank you for spending your time with us. Now let's move on to the open mic section. This is your opportunity to talk about anything that you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be related to the topic. So the floor is entirely yours. Please take it away.
Okay, so I think I would talk about something that's related to this, and one thing that is currently I'm researching on, it's to do with the biodegradable plastic, and particularly the so-called biodegradable plastic packaging, and also things that are labeled as compostable packaging. One thing that we find that there's lots of products are in the market that are labeled as being compostable. Which means that a consumer would go buy something, maybe like a disposable plate or a compostable cup, assuming that it is compostable, particularly for home composting. I'm referring to home composting. So those labeling systems are not correct. Because what happens is that it doesn't clearly specify the systems that are designed to be composted at an industrial facility are different compared to the ones that you can compost at home. So the two different materials altogether. The systems that are the conditions that are at an industrial system way different to the ones that we have at home. So people need to be aware of when they go buy these things, in particular the compostable packaging products, or products that are labeled as compostables, to be making sure that if they are designed to be, whether they are designed to be composted at home or whether they are designed to be composted in an industrial facility. The reason I'm saying that, because sometimes what happens is they try to put these things in home composting systems and they do not compost. And then we've done research and we find that there are cups that are labeled as compostable, and we try to compost them in a home composting system. It takes years for them, but they are there as they are, because they need to have those certain conditions that will actually break them down, and that's something people needs to be aware of.
Yeah, I also did.
It's a labeling issue.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I also did see something online where there are some products that can be labeled as biodegradable because they do technically biodegrade, but it takes like several years, like I don't know, 20 years or something like that. And that's something to consider as well.
Definitely. I've done other research on other areas as well, and that's one thing that we are constantly finding problems is the labeling of products. They're so complicated at times. When you start looking at a label, you don't know what to do with it,
Yeah.
And sometimes you find a product, one part is actually recyclable, for example, or compostable, the other part isn't. So, for example, you got a I don't know, a fast food or a ready-made food tray. You might find that the container itself is compostable, but the film that's on it may not be compostable. So it's a lot of confusion around. So there's no consistency essentially. So its consistency needs to be there. The regulation needs to be there. Of course, the awareness is one of the major things. If the consumer is aware of what they are buying, then that will of course force the manufacturers to make sure that the product that they are distributing in the market is actually fit for purpose. It's doing that job.
Yes. And what would you say, what do you think is the best solution to all of this confusion that's happening?
So there is several things that we could do. awareness definitely is one thing. Research that we are currently working on essentially is trying to sort of look at a situation at the moment. We're trying to test lots of different products in the market. The manufacturers need to take responsibility and to make sure that the product that they're producing is labeled correctly. It has gone through the stringent tests, and they are designed for a particular system. So if they are home composting, is it designed for a home composting system, then it should be tested. It should be actually used in that system. If it isn't designed for a home composting, then they should clearly label that please do not put this in your home composting system. Take it to an industrial facility or put it through a different route for it to be disposed of. That's something very important. The regulation is also very important. At the moment, there is no clear regulation. Different countries have got different regulations. You will see different products with different logos on it to say that this is okay to home compost and this is okay for this kind of thing. But there is no consistency, especially throughout the world. I think Europe has done some work on this, I would say. I've seen some logos from certain European countries. But again, they are not the same for throughout the Europe or for one country to another. So they differ. And that's one of the problems. So consistency definitely needs to be there. So globally, there needs to be a system that is equally accepted and understood, so that there is so we are on the same page. Essentially, at the moment we aren't. That's one of the things that we should definitely look into in regulation indefinitely.
Yeah, for sure. I see the same thing happening with recycling as well, where, I'm from Singapore, and over there it is general consensus that you aren't to put something in recycling if it's soiled with food or liquids and grease and stuff like that. But here I do see a lot of people putting it in recycling. There's so much disparity going on, and it kind of confuses me a lot of the time, because it's also like you've built this habit of like your composting or your recycling or what you send to landfill, and then you go traveling to another country and it's all different there. I heard that South Korea has a system where I think each and every apartment unit or household gets their own like colored trash bags, and you have to put it in correctly or you'll get fined.
Yeah, definitely. The regulations is definitely an important thing, and especially this. You talked about the fines. I think that's very important, because there needs to be some kind of stick for us to make sure you do the job. And you mentioned quite rightly about recycling in particular, and that's not the this is global problem. In particularly, people think that they're doing the right thing, but essentially they're causing more problem. A good example would be a milk bottle, for example. In the UK, we use a lot of milk bottles, and it is the label on it says recyclable, but people do not understand how to actually recycle that bottle. So the correct way of actually recycling that bottle is to open the top. Once the milk is finished, you rinse the bottle, give it a quick rinse of the bottle, and then you squeeze the bottle, then you put the cap back, and then you put it in the bin. So that's the right way of doing it. So that's where, when you talked about that contamination from formation of other things in it, that could be sort of taken away from it. Just putting straight bottle of once you've finished the milk and into the recycling bin is not actually good enough, causing more problem, because the product that we will try and manufacture with after recycling isn't going to be there, so it's going to get rejected when it goes to the material recovery facility, for example. So those are the things that will come from, so we can address these things. And so campaigns for better awareness needs to be properly designed and delivered to be able to clarify these, demystify some of these issues that we have in terms of awareness. And this can all be done, and I'm quite keen on taking this to a very grassroots level. So integrating this in our education system. So we teach our young generation, at a school level, to be aware of all these things, so that when they see this, or as they grow, it gets inbuilt into them. And also when they go home, they can pass this on to their families. So it's that kind of thing I think is very crucial. And I think that's curriculum needs to be designed in a way that these things become part of the education system. So we are creating the next generation is coming. They are better aware, and they are better educated.
Yeah, for sure. The earlier you learn, the better it is, the easier it is to internalize. So, yeah, thank you so much, Ali, for sharing that with us today. It was an excellent use of the open mic. If our listeners want to find out more about you and what you do, where can they go?
So, as you said in the introduction, I'm an associate professor at University of Portsmouth. I'm based at School of Civil Engineering and Surveying. So it's www.port.ac.uk. So it's port.ac.uk. You can just Google me up, and then you can see my face, and then you will be able to find me and just drop me an email. So my name is mohammed.ali@port.ac.uk. That's my email address. Drop me an email. I am on LinkedIn as well, so you can definitely connect with me via LinkedIn. Drop me a message, and I'm more than happy to sort of talk to anyone. We live in a global village now, so I'm more than happy to talk to anyone in the world. Set up these meetings online. It's fantastic to sort of engage with people with this. There's no barrier, so I'm more than happy to impart knowledge, and particularly sort of all this experience that I've got in composting. I want this to be transferred over, that knowledge, so that people can get benefit from it, and that's what I would say.
Amazing. We'll link all of those links in the show notes. Thank you once again for spending your time with us, Ali. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next episode.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to On the House, produced by the Household Management Science Labs, a division of LMSL, the Life Management Science Labs. More episodes like this from across 10 life management perspectives can be found by searching LMSL on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and other podcasting apps available on your smart devices. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider rating our show, sharing it, and subscribing to our channel, as it helps other people find it so we can grow and bring you more quality resources. More of our work can be found on our website at hm.lmsl.net, where you can join our movement. I'm Gabriella Yastra. Thanks for tuning in.